Hillary Clinton had 99 out of 100 black female votes. If a vote is more than politics, what else can be said about this demographic? Hey, what's up? Silas here. Thank you for listening. If you haven't done it already, like, subscribe, whatever platform you're listening to this. And this is part of my Shorties series and also Meme Whisperer thrown together. Shorties when I get a small thought and try to focus on just that thought, unlike some of my meandering rants that I might go on. And Meme Whisperer is when I actually get something from online and just expand on that thing, whether it's an actual meme or tweets or posts or things like that from other people and try to break it down. So this could be a bit of a mashup on that, and I'm going to expand on that. If you're watching this, there will be a speed drawing going on the screen, and it will be my design of M'Baku, the white gorilla, based off of the design style that was used in the Black Panther film. And the reason I'm doing this, of course, with the Black connection, the messaging to Black people, which is something that I will be expanding on in the video. There's also the tie-in with white elephant, the white gorilla, the white elephant, and kind of things like that. And the white elephant is a possession that is useless, troublesome, especially one that's expensive to maintain and difficult to dispose of. And I think that is part of what has been maligning the black community in the United States of America in particular ways. And this is something that the states do. And this happens in Africa, in Kenya, in other countries in Asia. It's a typical thing that the state does of creating certain programs and saying, oh, we have these grand plans, they're going to do so well. And then they actually bring it out, and then you have these unintended consequences that end up harming people. And that will come up later on. And the last thing to keep in mind is this is a design that I had based off of my history with the actual Black Panther, reading the comic books, knowing about the story before, then being informed by what's actually been projected by the Marvel Studios in that film and things like that, and then using my own artistic background, putting my own style in it. And that is a similar thing with this content in this video. I'm taking ideas and things that other people have said and putting them together and then putting them out to you, and these are my thoughts and my ideas. They're not definitive in any sort of way, and I encourage you to tell me what you think was right, tell me what you think is wrong, where I'm misjudging things, because this is the kind of way I think we just try to communicate and understand each other in a better way. Problems occur not because of what X is, because of how we define X, and then different things happen for the same reasons. And with that in mind, as we get back into the content, I'm going to open up by putting a different take on this same thought that I had with this other short thought. How diverse can a demographic be if 99% of them chose to vote, it's English language, chose to vote the same way? Could we safely assume they would share other choices? Okay, so with this one, this is a thought that came to me as I was doing my daily walks. And I was thinking about how people talk about the voting patterns of certain people. Oh, you voted for Trump in this case, and that means X, Y, Z about you as a person. Oh, you don't support this Proposition 16 that they had in California? That means you are against black people, you're against brown people, you're against people of color actually getting their jobs, actually getting places. And then when you actually look at the actual law, you look at the actual situation, and here from the post-millennial says, the progressive-led campaign seeks to reverse Proposition 209, a ballot measure passed in 1996. Proposition 209 reads, the state shall not discriminate against or grant preferential treatment to any individual or group on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in the operation of public employment, public education, or public contracting. And before I go on, the name of public, I just read a rather excellent article just pointing out how something when they talk about public school, or they talk about public sector, they talk about public unions, just the way we use language in certain senses. He used a good example where he said, oh, if you're rifling through somebody's shelf and they say, oh, don't touch that, that's private, that kind of puts in mind that, oh, we're not supposed to talk about that. That is something hidden, that is something special, that is something different. But then if it's like, oh, it's public, anybody can get it. So we have this idea that, oh, something is a public sector union, the public schools, the public sector union of the school teachers, they must be different and for everyone. And that couldn't be something that's also about very private and selected interests. Yet when you actually look at it, why is it a strike in the private sector? we just in general look at that and say, oh, those people just want more money. Those people are doing it for their own interests. But then you hear, oh, public school teachers are striking, and oh no, that's about the children. Think about the children. Why would somebody think about the children? And we don't actually think that, oh, maybe it's also just the teachers striking for longer times off, better pay, which I'm not saying they shouldn't actually advocate for. I have issues with public sector unions and things like that just because of the structure. Who are you striking out against? Are you striking against the people because you're being paid by money that's being taxed from them? Who's the actual competition in that situation? So that kind of queers things up. But the idea that public sector unions are somehow devoid from those private same interests, personal interests of the people in the union that are not present in the private sector is a fallacy. But coming back to this, I was talking about the Proposition 16, and further back I was talking about how people say your vote defines who you are as a person. And there is no demographic that is as solidly voting for a certain party, a certain group like this. 99 out of every 100 black female voter decided to vote for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. This has been a very solid demographic for the Democrats in the United States of America. When Joe Biden said something like, oh, if you have a problem voting for me, then you ain't black, people kind of mocked him about that, but I thought, what's so inaccurate about that? Because he's looking at people who have voted and considered themselves, identified themselves as a black voter. And when you count the men, it's usually with men, it's 85% around there or higher. So it's still, in total, you're looking at a 90% of people in this group considering themselves a black voter choose Democrat. Then it's not out of bounds to say something like, you're probably not black. I mean, it's kind of a thing where I can see where that comes from. Now, you can say that a vote is just a vote. That's this detached from somebody's personality and all these things. But this is a question out there to the people who say it's about more. Oh, you're a white supremacist. You're supporting white supremacy if you vote for this person. Only people who do X, Y, Z and have these things, those are the only reasons that person would actually vote for Trump. They kind of have that kind of idea. Chelsea Handler was like, oh, I have to remind 50 Cent that he is black and so he shouldn't support voting for Trump. With this, that's saying that there's certain traits, there's certain things that are not diverse about this group of people. This group of people are defined by these certain things. And there's certain things that are very specific to this group of people. So how else does this actually apply in practicality? Or what else would you apply this reasoning to? And this is by somebody named Wilfred Riley, Will the Beast, or Will underscore da underscore or WIL underscore. It's going to be on the screen. Let me just put it on the screen instead of like all these things. So Will the Beast 630 on Twitter, he posted this. Fatherlessness is an excellent example of a cultural situational variable that is hard to just pin on either racism or genes. For the first bad univariate argument, why was there 1/8 as much in 1938? For the second bad univariate argument, why was there 1/8 as much in 1938? Now, yes, he intentionally did repeat them, and this is a thread of tweets. So here is the next one. In 1938, the out-of-wedlock birth rate was 4% for whites and 10 to 11% for blacks. Williams, this is by Walter Williams in 2012. During one long lifetime, we've seen a 700 to 800% increase in the family instability for all groups. Those looking for the why of many modern problems might want to start there. And then he continues this for the second part. Crazy follow-up. The 17 to 23% black fatherlessness rates, black fatherlessness rates that horrified Danny Moynihan and led to his report are lower than those of all non-Asian groups today. Caucasians sit at 35.4%, Hispanics and Native groups at 50 to 66%, blacks at 71%, and the nation as a whole at 42%. Okay, so this was just something that I did post out and was talking in there, and then a couple of friends commented on it. I'm going to read you the comments that they had on these, and then I'm going to finish up with just some thoughts on it. So bear with me here. So here's the first post by a friend. This is CB. I'll just put that as the name of the person. And this is a female friend. She said, I don't think it's considered something they did to target and harm groups. I think it's considered something they put into place without considering the negative consequences. And this is something that I do agree with, and something I've repeated in several times in regular, something I do repeat constantly in the conversation series that I'm having with Stephen, the ongoing conversation series. We're right now recording the one on education, focusing on the book Cracks on the Ivory Tower by Philip Magnus. And with Philip Magnus had a different one, a different conversation series talking about his critique of the 1619 project. But I'm looking at these people and I think they want to do good. The teachers and the people in the education system have rationalized themselves because they're human beings and we're life forms and we want to do good for ourselves and for other people. We want to be seen as good. I don't think, forgetting the name of the person in particular, let me actually check and double check. I don't think Nicole Hannah Jones, who was in charge of the 1619 project with the New York Times, is intentionally trying to harm most people. What she's doing with that reimagining, she thinks it is positive for herself. I mean, it has been positive. It's been lucrative to her. She's become rather famous. She won a Pulitzer Prize. She's out there in public. She seems to be doing well financially due to this. Other people are supporting her. I think what she's doing, she has rationalized somehow that this is for something good. This is for something positive. But the actual results of it, the unintended consequences of some of these things, are the things that I am concerned about and saying, hey, are they trying to do this? Why are they doing this? Why are you voting for this? Why are you supporting these things? Like, why would 99% of this group actually choose to vote for Hillary Clinton? And if somebody like Joe Biden can go and assume that because this has been regular things, then what else can I see about this group of people? Can I look at your average black female voter and see, okay, if she has decided to do this in this situation, in this big life type of situation, can I assume that if I meet another black female that says she has voted, I can say, oh, if this female did this one thing based off of this thing, can I assume this other group will do this? Or is there more diversity in actual thought and results and actions? Are there other decisions that certain groups made that maybe perhaps, like in this situation, are they certain factors in their life that leads to them being a Hillary Clinton voter at 99 out of 100 that might also lead to them having a higher abortion rate? And then on the inverse, having a higher rate of fatherlessness in those families? Could there be some things that are in there? Could there be some commonalities? Okay, so somebody else posted this. This is HS, another female friend who has checked in. She's also involved in the public school system, and she's given me some insights that inform some of my ideas and thoughts and expectations and looks into. Hopefully I can get her eventually on the conversation series as I spin my channel back more towards that or break that out and do it as a separate project. I'd like to get into that where I actually just talk to people that I know and have met because I think I know some great people out there. That actually remember the name of the thing. But anyway, so HS responded to CB and said this. And it was like, oh, this thing, and then all a meme kind of sense and slang sense where you're agreeing with the thing. And then she wrote this under it. Today I sat in a second grade room and talked to some kids while they were working. I didn't bring up the convo. They were talking about it before I sat down near them. Out of the 5 kids in the conversation, 0 of them live with both parents. Only 3 lived with one of their parents. 2 live with their paps and 3 with their moms. So 0 dads and only 3 moms out of 5 kids talking. Now, some background on this individual, and these are the kind of things where I know these got to be what helps me think of these things and see different ways of just try to empathize and look at different ways that people are approaching things and experiencing things. And we're all humans. It's all team human in this. But I would really enjoy being able to actually just get them to come on and tell you from there on and have a conversation and things like that. So with some background, I am thinking this is being posted in part due to the area that I know they live in. It's predominantly white. It is more in the rural area. So with some of these figures, with most of the black women who are voting 99% for Hillary Clinton, who are having the high rates of fatherlessness. Now, this could just be a situation where, due to different reasons in the past, different migration within the United States of America reasons, there's a lot higher percentage of black Americans living in urban areas, in cities, not in suburbs, not in the rural areas, but in cities. So with her, she teaches in a rural area, in a more rural area in the countryside of the United States of America, those flyover red state type of places, predominantly white people. So she didn't put the races here. She understands. It's not like she doesn't see race. She comes from a mixed race family, however you want to say, mixed client family. Someone was adopted into her family, and we've been friends since college. It hasn't really come up that much. We discuss it as a topic because it is part of who we are, part of the human condition. But it's not something we have to list every time. But I think that was put in there in part due to the initial tweets by Wilfred Riley having the race in there. And this was my response to them. HS. The same system that runs the schools sets up situations for more kids in these sorts of situations. I bet most of the individuals that coupled and conceived these children went through K through 12 compulsory schooling and did not come out after that with a proper mentality to do more to prevent this unfortunate situation for their kids. Now that was the first paragraph. And why I'm saying unfortunate situation is if you have one good parent, it's better than having two bad parents. So if it's possible to have good parents, the more good parents, the more extended family, these are the kind of things that I'm thinking about. Getting in a stable situation, holding a job down before you actually have intercourse with somebody, having more of a relationship of what that intercourse does. So I think it's unfortunate as there's a lot more positive ways than having this 0 dads and only 3 moms out of 5 kids. And I think when they said paps there instead of pops, with a mom saying paps might be a slang, if I'm not mistaken. She can correct me if she hears this, but I think it's paps is slang for grandfather and not necessarily the father themselves. Okay, back to the response that I gave her. I know this isn't strictly an issue of blacks, as I have recently posted with a 99-1 Hillary versus Trump black female voting. You can probably find some primary shared traits, then go across other races and see where there is a correlation with voting of other women's voting patterns. Certain things are incentivized by the state, or at the very least, the disincentives seem less problematic. The same way some people say big businesses do certain things in careless ways because they count on the government tax breaks, regulations, and bailouts to support them before, during, and after against needing to account for the full risk. It's a similar situation at the lower level for having kids. Good parenting is as intensive as actually running a viable business, but tax breaks for having kids, you have the subsidized daycare system that is the K through 12 schooling system in the United States of America, which is followed by FAFSA for the university or college. And that FAFSA stands for Free Application of Federal Student Aid for the non-American listeners. Even some of the American listeners might know what FAFSA is but not remember the term, or might not have actually used it themselves. They could have found other ways because there's other ways the state backs up loans and incentivizes people to go to university and college and things like that. You don't really have to account for that personally, which is kind of the point I'm trying to make here. And then you also have child support laws in the courts and etc. The last paragraph in my response, I think you said this before, that you have overheard people planning to have children as a means of supporting their living. Reproduce your own products for the business of providing voters and cogs for the machine, and the state will pay you for that service. Some may say I'm cynical, but I do not see many being able to argue that I am inaccurate. So, finishing off, tying it back into what I was talking about before, what are the certain things that select for any group to have 99% out of that group choose to vote one particular way? We're a few days away from the election of 2020. I think I'll post this before. I'm posting more. I normally post on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, but with this election season, I think I'm going to post more frequently. So this will probably be posted before the election. But I'm giving a count, and I think, and again, this is different by the people who actually choose to vote versus the people who actually, the people who choose and actually go out and vote versus just the groups of people. Because you tend to have more people in any particular group who are eligible to vote, who choose to not vote, than the percentage of people, than the number of people that voted for either one of the two major parties. And this will be a separate one where people go on the third party, like, third party voting. I'm like, hey, come on now. Okay, get the people who are not actually voting. You haven't convinced those people. So you have that situation. So majority of black women in general may not share similar traits to the ones who actually choose to vote and go voting Democrat or 99% Hillary Clinton. But the ones that do that also have a great influence on the black people and the black men in that community. Because whether you agree with this or not, we are a sexually dimorphic species, and females kind of hold a place of importance. It is gynocentrism going on. There could be some patriarchal structures when you come to actual society, but there's a lot of things in that society that are based and created to serve the wants and needs and comforts and security of females. Also, in a separate video, kind of just mocking about these things. People talk about, oh, if you vote for this, this means you like this more. Oh, if you spend more money on this, this means you actually value that thing more. You have a situation where there's a billion-dollar global industry on just cosmetics, makeup, accessories, hair. You look at certain communities of the black community, millions of dollars a year are spent on getting their hair did, on wearing hair hats, wigs, so plastic on their hair, and then you have all these like people cutting hairs from Indian people, and they put those on their wigs and weaves and things like that. It's a massive industry in the black community. So do they value that more than other things? Like you look at, oh, they're spending money on Jordans and things like this and not all these things. Spending money on phones but not on all these other things. So if you can say that's the way you're spending, you look at the amount of spending that's actually controlled by women in general, and it's something like 80% of the spending done in the world is somehow directly targeted and controlled by women. You look at a man who's not in a heterosexual relationship, and their earnings are about 10% of what the average man who is actually in a marriage, who's actually supporting a family, who has a spouse, who has children. So these are things that incentivize things. Men are incentivized. Society is kind of targeted towards what the females are going to do. So their influence is important. You see a lot of females, it's not just white liberal females shaming black men for not voting for who they want to vote, for supporting Trump, but there is a lot of this thing in the black community, or the black women saying, those are our men. The white women are taking away our men. We have the men, the control of the men. As you see with the fatherlessness, they are raising a lot of the people. So who are they teaching? They're teaching these men these mentalities and the way to actually live and lead and act in certain ways. So there is an influence in there. But then what influences them to be the way they are? What are the actual things that go into getting a situation where this fatherlessness rate has raised? And then you also look at the people, you look at the groups of Caucasians, Hispanics, natives. Do they have similar actual voting patterns as this group? If you look at specifically the women in these groups who are also seeming to be affected by the raise in fatherlessness, I don't know if there's actually, I mean, there's probably ways to actually break down the details and go in and maybe I should get to a situation where I'm actually putting in more time and influence into some of the research on these things to see if you can actually tie down which are the actual things. What is the percentage? Is there even a higher percentage? Is it like 99.9999% of black women who are raising a kid in a fatherlessness situation? And then somebody also talked about with fatherlessness, how do you define fatherlessness? Is it simply just, oh, this person doesn't have a child? Or is there a man present? Or is there some extended family in there? And that's why I was talking about the unfortunate situation before. But regardless of that, even if you have the extended family, like a single mom with a extended family that is together, I think would be a better situation than having two present parents who are kind of not really that, they're violent in their parenting, they yell, they ignore the child, but it's two parents, it's a man and a woman parenting that child, but they're in an isolated area, they don't really have an extended environment. That's probably going to be more negative than that single mother living in a multi-generational, loving and peacefully parented environment, household, somewhere else in the inner city versus somebody just in the outskirts who's two parents. So it's not just fatherlessness. It might not be that clear, but I think regardless, if you actually look at these figures, if you look at the numbers in there, whatever is defined as fatherlessness for blacks is going to be the similar thing that's fatherlessness for the for the Asians, for the Caucasians, for the Hispanics, for the natives. So I think there's enough to assume that that's actually going to be something that's in there. But anyway, I'm winding this down. What I'm trying to say is, with these groups, what does your voting pattern say about them? And then if there's certain choices that define how you're going to vote, why you're going to vote for certain things, that are primarily based on nurture and your culture and your environment, rather than your genetics and your biology and your phenotypes and things like that. Because as I mentioned before, I think our biology does inform the societies and the cultures that we have and certain reactions that we have. So if you could find similarly genetic people across these different groups and that are living in similar cultures and similar societies, would their voting patterns also be the same? Is there a subset of white women, for example, that could match maybe 10 certain things about your average black female voter? And would you find that with those groups of people, with those subset of white female voters, they would also be voting for Hillary Clinton at 99 to 100? I think there might be some way to do that. So let me know what you think. This is the end of the video. Like, share, subscribe. Do you think the speed drawing, the things I mentioned earlier on with the speed drawing, actually fit the content that was actually presented in there? There's other merchandise up there. I don't think I have the actual Baku designs up there because I've had some issues with posting some things and they come under some trademark type of thing. But this is my own design based off of that. I think I might be able to post it. I'll test it out and it might be up later. But there's a lot of other cool designs you can find on there. Maybe you can go with the Frederick Douglass one or just some other things with the Frederick Douglass and the Anyone But K series and a bunch of other things I'm putting up on the regular basis. We'll be posting more. I think there's one thing I forgot. If you're still here, you're going to get this little extra. I forgot to mention this earlier when I was talking about the votes. With the upcoming thing, I do think Trump will actually get he'll get about 20%, 20 to 23% of the black male voters. There'll be very low turnout for black female voters. And I think Trump might get 5% of the black female voters, 5 to 8%, which is actually a lot, because there's just not that much enthusiasm for Joe Biden. And we'll find out in a couple of days after I post this, but that's what I think will happen with the actual votes, because people are seeing different things. There are things with like Candace Owens with the Blexit, and I've met several people who identify as black, American descendants of slaves and everything, who are conservative, who are voting for Trump, who are Trump supporters. Now I'm asking you out there, how many have you personally met that are in this 99 out of 100? Are you one of the 99 out of 100 black female voters for Hillary Clinton who might have changed? Are you still voting for? Are you voting for Biden again this time? Have you changed to Trump? Is there certain traits about you or those people that you know who are shared across the board that you see with other people? Let me know what you think about that. Till next time, goodbye.
Rules Committee Ranking Member and Senate Democratic Leader Charles E. Schumer, the Speaker of the House of Representatives Paul D. Ryan, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, and House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi.